Good evening, Hampstead. It's welcome to the school board meeting on Tuesday, October 10th, regular meeting. I'll call the meeting to order. Late, 7:00. Can't see it. There's a glare right on the thing.
7:04.
7:04. Melissa, could you do roll call?
Absolutely. Jason Giard,
Here.
Erin Pellegrini,
Here.
David Smith. Okay, Mr. Smith is absent. Andy Cabarrus,
Here.
Carl Hubner.
Here.
Thank you. And Pinkerton Student Liaison Shannon Caffell.
Here.
Thank you. Also seated at the board table is Superintendent of Schools Bob Thompson, and also present at tonight's meeting is CFO Jeff Dowd.
If everyone could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, that's loud. Okay, that's really loud. We're gonna move on to public comments. We have one for public comments. I need to say your name. I did?
Hi, good evening. My name is
Oh.
I live in Hsd Sb for a few years now.
Okay.
I have a couple of questions and observations from the last school board meeting. I know they have just picked out and are implementing the Wonders program for reading. I've done some observations with other schools, and I was just wondering, will they pick? Before picking of new programs for reading, math, and science, we should be looking at schools that are above average in the state. As I'm sure you are aware, as a district in 2022, Hampstead was in the middle of the pack with ELA at, with math at 50%, science at 41%, and ELA at 63%. Bedford, whose teachers make on average less than the Hampstead school teachers, they're in the top 25% of the state of New Hampshire with ELA at 77%, math at 73%, and science at 56%. When our district is going for new programs, are we looking at the best schools or best performing schools? If not, why? It just seems we are reinventing the wheel. For technology and cybersecurity, what information is being captured about our students? Who's capturing and the data, and what data is being shared? Is any of third-party people, et cetera, purchasing this data? How is it being used? All right, the school addition. You're asking for 6 new classrooms for the amount of $4,555,000. That is $759,000 plus per classroom. The square footage, which I calculated myself, is about 7,228 square feet at the cost of $630.18 per square foot. The Pinkerton freshman building was completed in 2001. I know the data is a little outdated. And the cost of the entire freshman building was $5,644,000. The building has 133,000 square feet and holds up to 900 students at a cost of $42.44 per square foot. The 6 classrooms you are proposing are 15 times more expensive per square foot. Even with the cost of inflation, it would not even come close to the cost of $630 per square foot. That building holds all administrative. It holds a complete cafeteria. It holds an IT department. It has absolute everything functioning in that building. It's remarkable that you come to the taxpayers with numbers even remotely close to these numbers. It's astronomical. Also, with the budgeting, You have and are taking millions of dollars out of the budget and are reallocating them to the capital reserve. Right now, you have moved $1,995,000 into the capital fund. Shouldn't that money be returned to the taxpayers? And put the cost of the project in front of the taxpayers to be voted on democratically. And lastly, policies. These policies may have a large impact on the budget, and any and all changes to the school's policies should go in front of every voter, especially if it impacts the taxpayer. The new policy, Education of Homeless Children and Unaccompanied Youth, just adopted this last meeting, will impact the school's budget, especially with having a new position or a district homeless liaison. We have to pay for training, transportation, technical assistance, and their staff. The child doesn't even have to live in the district, and we have to pay to educate them immediately, even if they don't have any records, including immunization records. Which I'm under the impression why they changed and adopted the first aid medical care policy. Why would you approve the removal of legal from guardian? What is your definition of a guardian? Back to the homeless children and unaccompanied youth, the district has to have these children vaccinated at our expense if Medicaid will not reimburse. Before you approve any more policy changes, you ask yourself, why? How much is this going to cost the taxpayers? You have an obligation not only to the taxpayer, but to the children and their parents of this district. Thank you.
Okay, so moving forward, I skipped a step and I forgot to have you guys approve the minutes. So if we could take a minute and approve the meeting minutes from, I believe we just have them from September 26th. And when you're ready, if anybody wants to make a motion to accept the minutes.
I'll make a motion to accept the meeting minutes from September 26th, 2023's regular meeting.
Second.
All in favor? I'm abstaining. Okay, so we're going to move on to school highlights. Shannon?
Okay. I don't have too much to update on, but we had an amazing senior corn roast on September 30th. The easiest way to describe it is the best 5-year-old's birthday party you've ever been to. I also heard that the freshman reception was a good time. Campus Corner, our student-run store, opened last week. I'm personally missing the cookies from the senior cafeteria. Dr. Powers popped up in the classroom again, stepping into a role in the fall play Antigone in Munich. Sadly, he will not be performing on stage. But the Pinkerton Players will be from October 27th to the 29th. This week, the dance group Versa will be performing in the Stockbridge Theater Thursday night. The Dance 2 company students have the opportunity to take a workshop class with them tomorrow. Seniors woke up bright and early Monday morning to watch the sunrise together. On October 15th, Pinkerton's HOSA Club is hosting a breast cancer walk at Pinkerton. And lastly, all the sports teams are holding incredible records this season. So good luck as we near playoffs, and I'll be back with more updates soon.
Great, thank you so much. So we're going to move on to Mrs. Millery.
Good evening. We have some updates for the middle school. First, CTE exploration. Our school counselors have been working hard at the goal of providing more experiences to our students. especially through the CTE program, that helps us to keep our kids engaged and excited about school. So we're trying to give them experiences now at the middle school so they know what they have to look forward to. Last week was the beginning of that. On Wednesday, our 8th graders got to experience the van. It's from the Department of Ed, and it is a van that travels around. It's actually a big RV. It's pretty amazing inside, and students had the opportunity to experience some of the different opportunities that they will have if they choose to do CTE at Pinkerton. They got to experience the hands-on learning pieces, learn more about it, ask questions. We even have Pinkerton students that are in the programs down helping, and that was really cool for them to see some of our Hsd alumni who are in the programs now. 6th grade's going to get to go tomorrow. So our counselors are going to continue to work on providing some more of those experiences for our students, and we're really excited about that, and thank you to Mrs. Karpinski and Mr. Mayu. Play for the Cure, our annual big event, was last Thursday and was just as amazing as the year before, very well attended. Our school was a sea of pink that day. There were activities throughout the day. They could buy pink gear, beads, boas, all kinds of things during the day as part of the fundraisers. The athletic club does a great job with that. We had a pep rally at the end of the day where our teams all got to perform their dances for us. Kids got really excited, and it was a really well-attended event after school. We had cross-country meet, we had a field hockey game, we had a girls' soccer game, and lots of opportunities for people to donate more money with basket raffles, food, Kona ice. To date, we don't have a final amount of fundraise, but again, for the at least third year in a row, we are over $5,000. We're waiting for some more funds to come in, so we don't have the final number, but the athletic club did report that we're going to be over $5,000 again, which is an incredible amount of money to raise for a small school, so we're really proud. MTSS, we're continuing that work through our data meetings. We've completed fall iReady. We do have a few that we're still getting finished up with, but our teams on Tuesdays are sitting down as a team and with our math specialist and our reading specialist, looking at the data, looking at our flex blocks and where students are placed and determining whether they are in the right place. Do we need to make some changes? Do they need a different intervention? So that work has begun, and teams are really diving into that and doing a great job with that. And lastly, clubs and athletics. Our students continue to be very involved. Our sports teams are in action and starting to kind of wind down the season for fall. It's time to register for winter sports, but our clubs have been super busy as well. Our anti-bullying club is sponsoring World Smile Day on Friday, where the goal is for everyone to wear yellow, and the purpose of World Smile Day is to show an act of kindness and make someone smile. So they're sponsoring that, and we're excited for that. We also have our Sunshine Squad, which is very involved in Red Ribbon Week, which will be in a couple of weeks, and that's a spirit week, and there's activities every day for Red Ribbon Week with substance abuse awareness. Student Council is working on some fundraisers. Right now they have just beginning a fundraiser for donations to a local animal shelter, and the kids, as our kids always are, very excited and very involved, and we're just really proud of the number of involved students. That's all I have for my report. If anyone has any questions.
No questions?
Great.
No? Great, thank you so much, but you can stay there.
Speaking of students,
So current business, so the next item, grade 8 student trip to Washington, D.C.
yes, so I would like to bring up Justin Berard and Gus Anderson, who have worked hard to give you a little bit of information and a request about the Washington, D.C. trip. These are
Great.
two of our 8th grade leaders.
I'd like to talk about why it'd be a good idea to let the 8th grade go on the Washington, D.C. trip. For starters, I think it would help enrich our understanding of our current social studies topic, and it really ties in with what we're learning now and what we'll be learning in the future. Because we're learning about the government and our government's past. And on the trip, we'll be stopping at D.C. and Philadelphia, which both have key roles in shaping our government as it is today, and it'd be really good to help us understand more about it.
Bouncing off of what Gus said, I actually had a brother that went on the DC trip last year, and he said it was one of the best school trips he's ever taken. And on top of it being an amazing trip, he learned so much on top of what he learned in the classroom. And he said it stuck with him seeing it in real life instead of just seeing it on a board. And he remembers what he learned and how it was. It really, sorry, that's really it, actually.
So our request would be that we take another trip this year in May. It's about the same time as last year, so we would love it if the board would approve that trip for our 8th graders.
All right. Does anybody have any questions, discussion? First, thank you for coming up and speaking. You guys did a great job, and so, you know, your class should be happy to have you on board with them. You guys want to? Someone want to make a motion to accept the trip?
So
Second.
All in favor? Have a great time when you go. And you're popular tonight, so you're up next again.
Stay right here.
Popular, busy, grade 7 field trip, Nature's Classroom, the agenda.
Yes, so when I was here last month talking about the trip, the request was that we provided more of what the actual trip would look like, which was great. We didn't quite have all the details, but we have a lot more of the details now. So it will be November 1st to the 3rd. We currently have 63 out of, sorry, I'm trying to think of the number. That class, yes, we have about 63 students signed up. The class is 83, so we're just shy, you know, a good majority of the classes signed up. So there's about 20 not going. And we will be leaving on Wednesday, November 1st, taking a bus up to Maine. And the days are laid out like this. We get there late morning, arrival time, check in, meet our groups, do a fire drill. I love that they have that on the agenda. Get that right out of the way. Kind of learn the rules and the ropes of the place that we're going to. Then they have a welcome meeting, and what the 3 days are really comprised of is it's a nice variety, and I'll give you the topics, is classes and field groups. So it's, you know, learning about different things and then going out and experiencing it. So Wednesday afternoon there's a welcome meeting, then there's a field group. They do get some free time, so there's, you know, I think basketball courts up there and different things that we can do outside. It'll be tricky to see what the weather's like at the beginning of November. Hopefully it's not super cold, but I think it has the potential to be really nice. So it's nice that they give them some free time. They have dinner all in a dining hall. It's a dorm style, so that it's bedrooms with up to 6 students in a room. It's either 2 bunk beds or 3 bunk beds, but all dorm style, so we're on 3 floors with chaperones spread out among the floors. There are 7 adults going with the students, so the ratio is nice. And then the Nature's Classroom has staff on site. So that other nice thing about Nature's Classroom is the staff really run it, and the chaperones from here are just here to support and help. We're not running the experience. It really is Nature's Classroom running it. And then there's each night we have an experience. There's a challenge of some sort the first night. The second night there's a night experience where we're doing a night walk, which I think will be super cool. And then the next day it's wake up, have breakfast. There's a field group. Then there's a couple of, they say, class 1 and class 2, breaking up into free time. So they really, the kids, we break them up into groups. We break them up into kind of dining groups, and we break them up into sleeping groups. The kids are able to give us an idea of who they would like to be with, and maybe some people that they would not prefer to be with, so we're working on that. Mrs. Griffin is really leading a lot of this and has done a tremendous amount of work, and I really appreciate all that she's done. So we're working on getting all of that settled now. And here are the topics that we chose. There's a huge range, so we chose ones, and Mrs. Griffin was really purposeful to choose what matches with the curriculum that they'll be learning about so that they can have that connection from the curriculum to the experience. Animal tracking, aquatic biology, bridge building, field journaling, PVC, geodome, orienteering, outdoor cooking, nature art, and build a civilization. So it really is just a great hands-on experience. And Wednesday's a good full day, and Thursday is the full day, and Friday we wake up, breakfast, clean cabins, get together one last time, and then we head off and we come back here, and we should get back around 1:30. And so we will have families pick up on the early side because they're going to be coming back with all their gear, so they'll need to pick them up so that they won't have room on all the buses. But we'll make arrangements if people don't have a ride, and that's really what the trip is scheduled to be like. So we're excited. It should be a really great trip, and the kids are excited. So
That sounds great. And that agenda will kind of be sent out to the parents, I assume, so they know
yes,
what's, okay,
yep,
great.
they're going to get the schedule that I just talked about. We were
Perfect.
waiting for him to give us kind of the final
Yep.
okay. So we will be getting that out to them. They're working on getting their paperwork and money in for the trip, and so I think we're in good shape. It's
That
great.
sounds great. Does anybody have any comments, questions, discussion?
No? Sounds exciting.
Yeah, sounds great.
Great.
Thank you so much. Next up is Student Services Update with Jess Parsons.
Good evening, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Jessica Parsons, and I'm the Director of Student Services. And this is Francine Flynn, the Assistant Director of Student Services. And tonight we have a presentation for you. It's our Hsd Student Services 23-24 priorities. So, Student Services is focused on making learning accessible for all students. Our goal is to create a supportive and inclusive educational environment where all students thrive academically, socially, and emotionally to get what they need to be successful. And there are a lot of people on our team to make this happen. This list may not be full because in any given moment, a student may have a need where we need to add another person to our team. And so in front of you are 5 priorities that we have set this year. These do not encompass all the facets of what we do in student services. This is just really where we're going to focus our energy to assess and improve our programming in the best interest of students and families in Hempstead.
It's important just to keep in mind when they think about special education and student services that we keep in mind that every student can learn, just not on the same day or in the same way. Oh, there she goes. Okay. In terms of special education services and programming, services extend to students pre-K through 12, including students placed at HCS, HMS, Pinkerton Academy, charter schools, out-of-district placement, and early intervention. So all of those students identified with educational disabilities receive services from our department. As part of our goal moving forward and ongoing, we are dedicated to continuously engaging in our review of programs and services to ensure that we're meeting the needs of all students, both at the present time and projecting into the future. For example, last year we identified a need at the middle school. We identified a cohort of students who required more experiential, hands-on type learning. In response to this, Laura Johnson, in collaboration with related service providers on the team at the middle school, developed a curriculum that uses real-world application for both academic and social skills. Most recently, this group of students visited St. Anne's Pantry, and they contributed to the putting together of some bags for Thanksgiving. At HCS, we identified a programming need in preschool, and there developed a classroom with a dual certified teacher and related service providers that worked together to develop an integrated service model in that classroom. For students who attend Pinkerton Academy, charter schools, and out of district, a major role of mine is ensuring that these students have access to appropriate programs and services. We collaborate closely with administration and staff in all of these locations to ensure issues and concerns are being addressed. For any students' needs we cannot meet in the district, we have to explore alternative placements and/or contract for services outside of the district. But we regularly, consistently evaluate progress and make sure that we are working toward the goal of transitioning services either back to district and/or the students for their placement back in district. Looking forward to this year, we are dedicating additional time to compliance monitoring with our special education staff. We're using our department meetings to present mini lessons on procedures and practices that align with the Department of Education requirements and any changes that are frequently and consistently happening around regulations in special education. We've also identified reading as an area of need this year and have secured a reading specialist in both buildings, the central school and at the middle school, to collect data on our current needs and to evaluate services and create what we hope is a tiered and coordinated service model across the district. That would be our goal moving forward in special education. Questions?
And so before we move on to the next priority, I thought it would be important for people to understand why special education exists and the importance of our role in terms of ensuring that it happens. So IDEA, which stands for Individuals with Disability Act, is the federal law in the United States that ensures children with disabilities receive a free and appropriate public education tailored to their unique needs. And that governs how states and public agencies provide early intervention, special education, and related services to eligible students and children with disabilities. And this is birth through age, in New Hampshire, 22. And the law outlines specific requirements for how we evaluate these students, how we determine eligibility, and the provision of services to support the educational needs of children with disabilities. So it's really important to know that we need to do these things because we need to follow the federal laws, and ultimately it's what's best for all of our kids to get what they need. I also will direct anyone who would like further information and links to this on our HamsteadSchools.net website, which is our district webpage. If you scroll down to the bottom, there's a student services box or block. If you click on that, that'll take you to the student services page, and on the left-hand side, there are links not only to IDEA and our requirements around supporting that, but also other parts of the Student Services Department in which there are federal and state laws that we are required to follow and provide services for students. Priority number 2 is our multi-tiered systems of support. I know we've talked a lot about this over the last year, and I think it's important for you to also understand the role of special education in this multi-tiered system. Typically, when you're talking about special education, you talk about Tier 3. Tier 1 is the bottom, and that is inclusive of general education. Tier 2 is typically the next layer of support, which is more of an intervention-based model, and Tier 3 is typically special education or more specialized or personalized services. And so that is a big part of what we do in special education, and we provide expertise, we provide support, and we help coordinate to ensure that all students receive an appropriate level of assistance. And I'll just give you an example of how we're working in collaboration with both HCS and HMS to ensure that this happens. Although there are reading specialists from a general education side in the schools, our student services reading specialists are working directly with them through the MTSS process. Recently, the state adjusted the dyslexia law to ensure that we are screening all students grades K to 3. And that's really important as part of that screening process. If we identify a student that potentially has characteristics of, that we may need to do additional assessments to ensure that we are meeting their needs. And so we are collaborating efforts and working together, both the general education and the special education reading specialist, to coordinate efforts. And at times, special education may be working with the students and the families to do additional assessments to ensure that the interventions we're providing are appropriate for the student. And so we're not working in isolation, we're working alongside other practitioners in the building to ensure that students are getting what they need. Priority number 3. English language learners. I talked a bit about this last year, and it's a role in supporting English language learners in our district, and It's not only to help ensure that they have the appropriate language instruction and academic support, but it's also making sure that the work we're doing is fostering a culturally inclusive and supportive learning environment for our students. Last year, we identified a need in our district that we had several students identify requiring English language services. And so we put interim supports in place while posting a position. We were happy to fill this position. Her name is Nicole Ponte, and Nicole started this year. As part of her work, she's been tasked with continuing to identify students that require or need English language learner services, as well as updating our current practices to ensure that we're in compliance with state and federal regulations. And part of that is more specifically updating our LAO plan. That is something that is federally required for every district to talk about how they are supporting their English language learners, how we identify them, what services we put in place, and how we monitor their progress, as well as how we assess them through the year. In addition to that, Nicole is dedicated to providing Tier 2 and Tier 3 interventions for students who may not be English language learners but require services to improve their language. And she is working with our MTSS team to ensure that all kids are getting what they need. And so she's just another support and service through our process.
What does that identification process look like?
That's a great question, Andy. So it really starts with what we call a home language survey, and that's required by state and federal law, is that every student upon entering a school district needs to fill out what's called a home language survey, and that really helps us to identify whether or not a second language is spoken in the home. And if that is flagged, then that helps our English language teacher to call that family and just talk about whether or not further assessment would need to be required, and then a screener, if the parent is in agreement, we would screen the student to determine what level of English language learner services they would require. Some are screened and no services are required. Some are screened and they would need the highest level of services. And it's a continuum where recommendation of services would be given to a family, and then we would talk about if they wanted to accept that service. And families don't have to. They can decline services, but we also are dedicated to supporting students. So if it isn't through ELL services, then we would do it through other interventions to ensure kids are getting what they need.
And this is just my ignorance, but let's say you call the family and there's a language barrier. And,
Sure.
Do we have an interpreter or?
Yeah, great question. So, because many different languages are spoken throughout our community, to have one interpreter is not necessarily feasible anymore. And so we're contracting with a company that can provide in the moment interpretation services. If we call and we let them know what language we're looking for, they can connect us with an interpreter through a telephone, and they can help translate for a family. They can also set up Zoom, and we can also schedule interpreters to come into the building if we have scheduled meeting times. So yes, it is our responsibility to interpret meetings, as well as IEPs, as well as any type of communication that comes if a family requests it.
Excellent.
Yep.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Okay, great. Health services. This also falls under student services, and it plays a vital role in ensuring that students have access to comprehensive health services and supports while attending school. What we've recognized over the last several years is that we've had an influx of students that have some significant medical needs, and it is our responsibility to support and monitor those needs throughout their school day. And that may look different depending on the type of needs of the student, but ultimately we're meeting frequently with our nurses to identify what those needs are, make sure that they have the appropriate supports in their office to support those needs, as well as the appropriate technology. Right now, one of the things that we're looking at and working on with the nurses is to make sure that we have adequate adequate support for coverage when a nurse needs to be out of the building or when a field trip occurs, making sure that we have staff not only that can substitute, but also that have had an opportunity to come into our health services offices and do some orientation and understand the needs of our students, so that when we do have an absence, that we have staff in there that are well equipped to support the kids in our community. Any questions about that? Great. And I think it's important to note that if our students are attending extracurricular activities that are sponsored by the school, it is our responsibility to continue to support those health needs for students outside of the school day if it is a school-sponsored event. So dances, sports, any other type of after-school club, we're making sure that we're supporting their needs as well in those extracurricular activities. And then last but not least, number 5 is systems of care. And student services plays a vital role in the systems of care because it includes social and emotional supports for students and families in need. This system of care aims to provide comprehensive and coordinated services to promote the social and emotional well-being of students and their families. And it's kind of twofold. The first is our counseling team, and our counseling team isn't just our counselors. It includes our counselors, it's our district social worker, as well as our school psychologist. And this team really is our mental health experts, focused on ensuring that we are providing school-based counseling services to adequately meet the social and emotional needs of our students. We know if students come in and they're not able to regulate their emotions, it's much more difficult for them to access their education, and it is our responsibility to support that regulation piece. In addition to that, they work hand in hand with our district social worker, Julie Barbick, to coordinate outside and outreach services for families. So sometimes it's really important if we're recognizing an emotional need in a student in school that we're working with their families to help coordinate potentially outside services that can work from a more clinical approach. Our work is more from an educational standpoint to help access their education. And then outside, we can help connect families with clinical services that may have more of an overall impact on supporting whatever might be impacting their ability to access. The other piece that they work hand in hand with in terms of our system of care is our work focused on families in transition or our homeless families. Julie Barbick, our district social worker, is also our MV liaison. This is a requirement that comes down from the state. We are required to have a liaison and a coordinator within our school district to support and coordinate the services from our needs from McKinney-Vento, and Julie works very closely with me so that we can work with families that we've identified that are in need and that have qualified for our McKinney-Vento program. And with that, we're continuing to update our programming to make sure that we are supporting families so that students that may be in transition can have continuity of their education throughout that school year. The last thing I wanted to say in terms of our coordinated efforts is that it expands beyond our K-8. Pinkerton and the student services needs of students that attend Pinkerton is still our responsibility, and we're still very dedicated to ensuring that those students also get what they need. So if we do have students in transition that may be experiencing homelessness, it is our responsibility, although they're not necessarily within our 2 schools, they're attending Pinkerton, we're supporting their access to their education at Pinkerton as well. So I know most of the time we think about our work from a K-8 perspective, but student services doesn't stop at 8th grade. We actually continue on and follow our students until potentially age 22, depending on what their needs are.
That's great.
All right. Do you guys have any questions for myself or Francine?
I have, go ahead. This may be a difficult question to answer, but like you said, we've heard MTSS, that acronym, kind of thrown around over the past 2 years quite frequently, and I'm hoping that you can share with me and share with the public kind of what that looks like from a day-to-day life of a student.
Sure. Can I just give like a hypothetical?
Absolutely.
Like if okay.
That would be perfect.
We did our iReady testing. And when we look at the data longitudinally from a grade level, we recognize that there are some students who may not meet a threshold that we've put in place in terms of what our grade level expectations are. And so sometimes those kids, if we color code them, they come up in maybe the red. And so that for us is a flag that says, let's look into that student a little bit more because they didn't meet the threshold, for example, in reading. And we may do an additional screener on top of that. And that grade level team will talk about not only the data points that they receive from iReady, but additional assessments they may do, and then look at whether or not all of that triangulates into a need. And if that triangulates into a need, then we would put our reading team together and determine, is it phonics, is it phonemic awareness? We would identify what that specific area is, and from that we would target their specific need, create a goal and some benchmarks around that, and then we would pair them with an interventionist that is appropriately equipped with an evidence-based programming to kind of tackle or target that need. They would then take data over time, so a student would go out during their win time for an additional reading intervention. That interventionist would provide the services as well as collect the data. Start with developing a strong relationship with the student, I should go with that. And then provide the intervention, collect the data, and then if they see a positive trajectory, they'll continue with that intervention until maybe there's remediation. If they continue with that intervention and they don't see any progress, they may want to reevaluate and redetermine, potentially bring in an additional assessment. And when I say assessment, it doesn't mean a big long test. It could just be a quick little screener that shows like, hey, short vowels are an area of weakness, and we may want to focus on that instead. And then ultimately, if we don't see progress, that interventionist may say, I think we may need to look at referring to whatever team may be next in the process, whether that might be the next level of the MTSS team that determines they need a higher level of intervention, or it could be a referral to special education because they may suspect a disability is present. Does that?
That was awesome.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Very helpful.
And our hope is that at some point they're in this kind of system, and that system will follow them, and it'll just kind of put them where they need to be in terms of services and supports.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Kind of off that, is there a specific person a parent should be touching base with if they feel like their student doesn't need a lot of services but they need some help? Like, should they be going through a guidance counselor or their homeroom teacher?
Yeah.
Like, is there a specific person, or is it just reach out to whoever you're most comfortable with?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly think comfortability is important, but from an HCS perspective, I think reaching out to your classroom teacher first is the best course of action. And I think in terms of the middle school, if it's a math concern, certainly reach out to your teacher, math teacher. If it's a language arts concern, you can reach out to that. The advisor is a great option as well, but I think starting with the classroom teacher, and then working from there, and asking questions, and then and always, if you feel like you suspect a disability, to refer immediately to special education, and you can write that letter to any teacher on your child's team, and they will get that to the principal, and then the principal will ensure that a referral meeting will take place.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have no other questions. Anyone else?
Other questions?
Good.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So we're going to hand it over to Mr. Thompson now to talk about the HCS edition plan design.
So just one real quick update. So we are in the process of finalizing the total project cost for the HCS renovation, and that's in line with our timeline. The original timeline set with the project manager had us mid to end of October coming up with the total project budget. This reflects more detailed project budget. The original numbers is an estimate, and as we get closer to voting, we'll come up with more detailed numbers. So we're expecting that. We have a meeting set up in the coming weeks with our project manager, the architect, and the general contractor. So I will have more of an update in early November for the board. So
All right.
that's really it at this time.
Anybody questions?
So I kind of just had a question that came, I forgot your name, but roughly how many square feet is the?
I say close to 8,000 square feet. So we have
The final
6 classrooms at 900, approximately 900 to 1,000 square feet.
Okay.
Plus, we have some additional, what we call sort of storage space or sort of versatile space.
So, yeah, I was just running the numbers. 8,000 square feet at $4.5 million. The new addition at Pinkerton, the social studies wing, is 30,000 square feet at $20.7 million. Those are approximately around the same price. So that was because I was concerned about what you had said. So those are just kind of the numbers, so that made me feel better.
Yeah, and it's interesting to note too that the project manager for the Pinkerton project is the same project manager for the Hsd project as well. And there's a fairly limited number of contractors and project managers in the state of New Hampshire that actually do school building design. School building construction is very different than any type of residential, commercial, or industrial, just because of the amount of regulations associated with classroom size and egress and fire codes. So it's challenging, and yeah, it certainly comes at a cost.
Good. Any questions? You're all set? Okay, so we're gonna hand it back over to you again for the 2024-25 budget process update.
Yeah, so we are in the thick of things, so to speak, when it comes to the development of the 24-25 school budget. So CFO Dowd and I are presently meeting with our directors and building principals to review their department and building budgets. We scrutinize, as we've said it many times before, every single line. We ask questions, and that is really in preparation for next Tuesday. That is the 17th. So here, next Tuesday at 7 o'clock, we have a budget workshop. And really what happens at the budget workshop is provides the school board members an opportunity to go through each one of the department budgets. So there's a liaison for each department and school. And what they'll go through is the director or the principal will walk them through the budget or the proposed budget. They'll ask questions. And then that will be the lead up to our meeting at the end of October, which will be a presentation to the public of the department budgets. After that, we put all of the pieces together to construct the administration's budget that we'll present to the board. The board will deliberate on that. And so the public is welcome next week to attend and really have the opportunity to listen in, to hear some of the really thoughtful discussion and really understand just the amount of time, effort, and detail that goes in. Again, with the zero-based budgeting model, we're getting actual costs to the greatest extent possible for every line of the budget. And where we are not able to get actual costs, because we're talking about a budget that is almost a year out, looking at what annual expenditures have been, coming up with averages. But I am just very impressed with the job that the directors and the principals do in terms of really putting the time and energy into the budget. So that's where we stand with budget.
All right, anyone have any questions? Good. All right, so moving forward, we are just gonna put it over to Mr. Dowd for Foundation for Impact on Literacy and Learning Grant.
Yes, thank you. Here to request that the board consider the acceptance of $1,000 from the Foundation for Impact on Literacy and Learning for the purpose of replenishing the little food bank here at the Hempstead Middle School. And in their award letter to us, they specifically cited our our ability to get that up and running as one of the reasons that we qualify for the grant. And when great things happen like this happened a couple of years ago, we really have to recognize the students from not the most recent 8th grade class, but the one before that, Mr. Remelard's students for designing, the facilities department for constructing, and for Julie Barbeck, who ensures that the food pantry is able to be connected with the families in need in our district and continues to replenish that food bank as well. So all great stuff. all good stuff.
Great. Does anybody have any questions, discussion?
Are there any conditions on accepting the $1,000?
No, the
Okay.
condition seems to be met that we have a successful little food bank out there.
Okay.
All right, so does anybody want to make a motion to accept the $1,000 grant? I don't know how you want to word that.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor? Okay. All right, so thank you very much. Next up on the list is the 2023-24 school board goal adoption. Board members, in your packet, you have a draft of the board goals. Do you guys want me to review those again? Do you need me to read them again, or no? So if anybody wants to review them, we can look for a motion to accept the Hampstead School Board goals for 2023-2024.
I'll go ahead and make the motion to accept the 2023-2024 school board goals. As written in our packet.
I'll second that. All in favor? Okay, so now we are going to move on to second reading of policies. There are 6 policies in the packet up for second reading and adoption. These were moved forward from the last meeting. I wasn't at that meeting, so I don't know if anybody wants to just summarize anything, or if we're good to, do they need to be summarized at all, or?
Just, I think in summary, if you look at the policies, really what we're talking about are making adjustments based upon changes to federal and state law. That largely drives a lot of the policy updates. And I know during public comment, JFABD, admission of homeless students, was referenced. That policy was last revised in 2016. The policy updates that the board has in front of them are the result of changes to the federal statute. So these changes would allow us to be in compliance with the federal law.
All right. Board members, do you have any questions, discussion? If not, I would make does anybody want to make a motion to, sorry.
Mrs. Pellegrini, would you mind, just for the record, wow, that's loud, just reading the listing of the policies?
Oh, sure.
And, like,
Sorry
the
about
titles?
that. Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, so the 6 policies are, do you just need the names of them, or do you need me to read the descriptions? Okay. Okay, so we're looking at the DB annual budget, the JFABD admission of homeless students, BIE board member identification, JLCE first aid and emergency medical care, EBBC first aid and emergency medical care, and EBBD indoor air quality. So if there are no questions, does anybody want to make a motion to accept or adopt these policies?
I'll make a motion to accept all 6 policies.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Good. All in favor? Yeah, sorry. It's harder than it looks.
You were great.
Let's see, so next up is board comments and correspondence. Jay? I don't have anything. Andy?
Good.
Carl? All right. And then we're going to move on to consent agenda with the, and I'll hand that over to Mr. Thompson for the personnel report and superintendent's report.
So there is no personnel report. So moving on to the superintendent's report, we'll kick it off with an update from Mrs. Tomaselli on curriculum, instruction, and assessment.
Good evening. So this past Friday, we had our first full professional learning day with staff since the opening day's ceremonies. On Friday, we focused on a few different areas, but some of the highlights were training for our elementary teachers on the New Wonders program. So this was a pretty robust unpacking opportunity that afforded people times to sit with their teams and their ELA pilot leaders to really delve into the materials, look at the scope and sequence, spend a lot of time with the online calendar and usefulness of all the modules. There was a lot of Q&A opportunity as well. And here at the middle school, the whole staff was trained in the new program called Writable, which is a very exciting component to our ELA curriculum, which involves AI. So even teachers who are not teaching writing, for example, our UA teachers got to see a little bit of that AI in action in an appropriate way for educational context. So that's kind of exciting. Our staff also had training from Joe Dion and Michael Shaw, our network admin, on some new cybersecurity procedures, and we're introduced to MFA, so that's the multi-factor authentication. So now our teachers have multi-factor authentication in place. We also talked about other data governance processes and just kept everyone kind of current. We also reviewed our new evaluation model. So we've been working, we started the work last year with the Professional Growth Committee to look at our current evaluation model and kind of look at what other towns are using and look at teacher feedback and administrative feedback. And so we've started to redesign that model and revealed a new draft plan and a draft observation form to both staffs on Friday. And we also solicited members of our staff, our professional staff, to join the pilot, and we are overwhelmed with responses. So we have quite a few staff that are very eager to try this new model out. We believe the new model will provide the administrators with more walkthrough-like opportunities, so it won't be a pre-scheduled observation, and it won't require a lot of paperwork prior to the observation. So the current model requires pre-meetings and paperwork associated with those meetings, then an observation, then a follow-up meeting. This will be a walk-through model where drop-in evaluations will be done. The criteria are still in 4 major domains, which are universally kind of agreed upon, and then we were able to infuse a lot of the language from our work in UDL into each component. So we're excited. We still have some edits to make of our actual observation form, but I think the feedback overall was really positive. People are looking forward to something that's a little bit more authentic and timely, and our administrative team will be able to turn these around much quicker. It'll also afford us to condense some meetings and just less paperwork. So we are often looking at trying to find ways to lighten the teacher load, and this is an area that I think teachers are really excited about and admin are excited about as well.
And is that captured electronically using a third-party platform?
We use a tool called TeachPoint, but yep, all the observations are captured digitally. They have a timestamp feature, and so our teams walk in with their devices and. Yep.
Great.
Yep. Any other questions?
No? Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And I will hand it over to Mr. Dowd, who will give us an update from the Finance Department.
So we have our audit team, in addition to budget, we have our audit team out there today, and I only have one coming back tomorrow because they did a lot of work preliminarily, and Bob scared them off. No, they did a lot of work preliminarily, and so yeah, it's moving along fine. I'm looking forward to a timely audit report this year.
Great.
So good stuff. Good stuff. Obviously, Bob talked about budget development. That's the other big thing we've got going on, and that's moving along well. All the department budgets are rolling in, and we have a meeting next week, which Bob mentioned, with public in the library on the 17th to review the budget in a budget workshop format. So look forward to that.
Thank you very much. Anything else?
Yeah, just real quick, I know Principal Milbury talked a little bit about Play for the Cure, but I did have the opportunity to participate in Play for the Cure. Just what an amazing event, just a sea of pink. And I actually made the rookie mistake. I wore my pink shirt on Wednesday. So I came into the building Thursday morning and felt a little out of place. But it was great because the school counselors were going around, because there were a couple of kids that, you know, didn't have pink, and they were handing out pink attire, like beads and different things. And I just thought, you know, how inclusive of a school community that they go out of their way to deliberately make sure people like me who didn't wear my pink on that day have something to wear. I also had the opportunity last week to, you know, as we've said here before, you know, we have a shortage of substitute teachers. So members of my administrative team and myself have been substitute teaching. We've been covering duties. I had the opportunity to substitute teach for Mrs. Benson's 6th grade social studies class last week. For me, that's kind of getting back to my roots as a former social studies teacher. But I mention it because there's this flex block this year, which is sort of a new concept. And in Mrs. Benson's flex block, they're reading the book. It's called Schooled by Gordon Corman. And if you have a chance, I would suggest. So I have purchased the audiobook and I've started reading it. And it's a great book considering, you know, we talked a little bit about cyberbullying at the last meeting. And essentially the book is about a middle school student who had been previously homeschooled, who makes the return to their public school, their middle school. And it really kind of highlights some of the perils of middle school that some of us may remember. And I mentioned that because we just had such a great conversation. Again, the Flex group is a small group of kids. It's like, it was like 8 students. So the opportunity to engage in conversations, and I really appreciate the honest answers when we talk about school culture, and you know, so I appreciate the new Flex block model. And I do think that our teachers and our administration are taking those steps to address, you know, some of those issues that middle schools deal with. And then lastly, I just wanted to make a plug. So our strategic plan deliverable document, one of the items is to engage with the community more. It's also to provide more volunteer opportunities to parents. We heard that loud and clear from parents who gave the end of the year survey. And they had indicated, you know, they went through the process to become designated volunteers. They had a background check. They want more opportunities to participate in the school. So next Tuesday, right before our budget meeting here at the middle school, we will hold an event that we're calling Empower, Engage, Educate, Hampstead School District Volunteer Information Night. And really what it is just an opportunity to engage some of our volunteers, present volunteers, future volunteers, in just a conversation about volunteer opportunities, the experience. And also there are some components, things like the mandatory reporting law, student safety. There are some really important issues that we need to make sure that are on the radar for volunteers. So this first group of the parents who attend, they're kind of the pioneers. We're trying this on. We'll make adjustments and we'll do it again. And make it part of a regular thing that we do. It would also be our hope after the first or maybe second one that we could do it here in this room so that we can record it, and then we can provide every volunteer, push that out electronically to all of our volunteers. So again, just trying to make, to do a better job outreaching to community, to the volunteers. And speaking of volunteering, if you're interested in being a designated volunteer, you can go on the district's website under employment. There is a link where you can fill out an application and we can get you through the process. Once you are on the list as a designated volunteer, you remain on that list unless we have a reason to take you off. But otherwise, you will, you know, you don't have to go through that process every year. So And that's really it for the superintendent's report. I'll entertain any questions that folks might have.
I was just going to ask about the, what you just said, so you answered my question.
Yeah.
Because I had a couple of people ask, do I need to go do it again? I was like, I don't think so, unless, because I think if it's, I thought I had heard that if it was, if you weren't active for a certain amount of time, you might have to do it again, but.
Yeah, generally not.
Yeah,
No,
okay.
That's not the case, so.
All right, great.
Yeah, I just love the capacity building, and then once you train some people, they can train other people as well. That's super helpful.
Yeah. And, you know, it's great because, you know, I sort of went through the applications to see, like, you know, who are our volunteers? So first of all, there's 176 designated volunteers. That's quite a bit. And it's interesting because we have people who were teachers who decided to, you know, take a break from teaching to raise a family. We have doctors, we have nurses, we have people who work in television broadcasting. So we met as a leadership team to begin discussing, like, all right, how do we kind of put these people to work, right? So we know we're having some staffing issues. All schools are right now. Is there a way that we can utilize these volunteers in a really meaningful way to be able to fill, when appropriate, some of the holes? And then the other thing too that I know Dr. Cheney is working on is bringing back lunch buddies. That was something pre-COVID that was a highlight for the central school, and we want to bring that back, do it in a way that's safe, so we can look forward to that starting really soon. So,
Great.
Great news.
All right. And any other business, old business? No? And I don't believe we have any non-publics. So it looks like we can adjourn the meeting. I can't see the clock. 8:10.